Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where we're going to talk about math being hard. And I think this is an important story to talk about just to show you how numbers are very wonky in the business world. A lot of the CEOs basically want to obfuscate what numbers actually look like so that they do not scare investors. And that can be a real problem if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to do things in this industry, to try to get your mind around how the industry itself is actually doing, right? You get all of these numbers thrown at you, and then you're told what those numbers mean, but sometimes the numbers don't necessarily mean that. That's what they want you to think the numbers mean. What the numbers actually mean, who the hell knows? And I've been talking about this a lot because I get all these questions about jobs. Eli, I want a job. And as I've said for at least the last decade now, the job market in the tech world has had nothing to do basically with sanity. One minute we had investors throwing money at tech companies. The next minute we have investors not throwing money at tech companies. And that has more to do with whether or not you're going to get a job than your A+ or CCNA, or whether you know Node or whatever else. So this is curious. What is this coming from? Gizmodo? Or I'm sorry, Engadget. Intel confirms it will dramatically cut its workforce by the end of 2025. Now you might be sitting here going, well, Eli's already talked about this. Eli's already talked about Intel laying off 20,000 people. Eli's just trying to double dip here to get more views with the same information. But what becomes interesting is when you start looking at these numbers, yeah, it starts looking worse than 20,000. Like you hear 20,000 people being laid off, you're like, oh my golly. And then you start looking at the numbers and you're like, oh, that might be low. That might be really low. Let's see here. Intel provided more detail about the scope of its planned job cuts and other business changes while sharing its second quarter earnings results. Reports in April suggested that Intel could eliminate around 20% of its staff in a restructuring. Today, the chipmaker said it anticipates having a core workforce of 75,000 employees by the end of 2025, down from 99,500 at the start of the year. So we heard they're going to get rid of like 20,000 employees, but it seems like it was 20,000 employees from that point in time, right? That's when they lay people off or they get rid of people or, you know, whatever, attrition, right? There's a lot of ways to get rid of employees. And so you hear about 20,000, you're like, wow, that's a lot. But then you look at it, okay, at the beginning of the year, they had 99,500 employees. And by the end of the year, they want 75,000 employees. So that actually means that they're going to be getting rid of around 25,000 employees in 2025, not simply 20,000 employees. Now you sit there and you're like, wow, that seems bad. It gets worse. It gets worse. The numbers are even more dramatic when considering the company's downsizing efforts as a whole. This time last year, the chipmaker employed 116,500 across the globe, not including workers in its subsidiaries, and that number has fallen precipitously since. As of June 28th, the company had 96,400 workers, meaning it's planning a reduction of more than 20,000 employees over the second half of the year. So basically, in this year, so in 2025, they're going to trying to get rid of 25,000 employees. But if you look at it, in the past 2 years, they will have tried to get rid of over 40,000 employees. Now, when I talk about 40,000 employees going, this isn't multiple companies. This isn't San Francisco. This isn't something like that. One single technology company is trying to dump over 40,000 employees in around 2 years. So now you might understand why I get frustrated with the whole, how do I get a job? So motherfucker, they're dumping people 10,000 at a time. 10,000 at a time, just gone. And this is just Intel. And Intel isn't that big anymore, right? They're not the biggest player out there. Meta getting rid of, Amazon getting rid of, Microsoft getting rid of. All of these companies just crap canning 10,000 employees at a time. That is the reality of our industry right now. These cuts are part of the company's current goal to bring the non-GAAP operating expenses down to $17 billion this year, then to $16 billion at the end of 2026. So basically, they're trying to bring their expenses down, right? Well, if you're trying to be profitable, if you're actually trying to be profitable with your revenue, you can either increase revenue or you can decrease expenses. So what they're doing is they're decreasing expenses. Why are they decreasing expenses? Because they have a whole bunch of worthless employees. I know. When I sit here and I talk about these worthless employees, everybody's like, oh my golly. But it's just true. This isn't in the eyes of the spaghetti monster. I am not saying you are worthless in the eyes of the spaghetti monster. I'm saying you're worthless in the eyes of capitalism, right? They have you at this company, and literally it is better for the company to get rid of 40,000 people than to keep them. Let's see here. The effort to rein in spending is also leading Intel to abandon some previously announced expansions. The business will no longer embark on new projects in Germany and Poland, and it said it will consolidate its Costa Rican testing and assembly operations into existing efforts in Vietnam and Malaysia. Finally, it will also, quote, slow its pace of its stateside growth at a construction site in Ohio. And that's the other thing, too, to think about with these layoffs. Not only are there layoffs, but they're slowing expansion, obviously, because they're cutting back on expenses. Therefore, they were not going to be hiring more people going into the future. If you look at this with Intel, it is interesting to watch Intel die. Intel is one of the perfect examples of things that I want you folks to understand. When I talk about Google dying, right, I talk about YouTube dying, right? It's funny. Whenever I talk about YouTube dying, people lose their minds, right? I honestly believe YouTube is the largest startup company that will ever burn in, right? This is going to be a $200 billion startup company that's going to end up burning into the ground at some point in the future. It hasn't yet. They're still paying me. I will still keep taking the money while they send it to me, but I don't think it works. And the funny thing is, like whenever I talk about like Google failing or when I talk about YouTube failing, people lose their minds. They're like, how can you possibly think this will fail? Because I was there for AOL, and I was there for BlackBerry, and I was there for Kodak, and I was there for, how many companies have failed? You know, the MySpaces, Yahoo. Remember when Yahoo was Yahoo? I remember when all these companies were trying to take over the world, and now they're absolutely and utterly dead. We take a look at Intel, right? Intel. If you talked about Intel died 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that would have been considered ridiculous. Eli, it's Intel inside. You need Intel. You know, 5 years ago, if you had said, well, Intel was dying, people would be like, well, I mean, you know, maybe there's this TSMC company out there doing some interesting things, but Intel's not gonna die. And now you get to 2025, Intel is just slashing employees, tens of thousands at a time. They're dumping divisions and departments, right? So they got rid of RealSense, which was a vision system that they had. They got rid of, I think, 5G modems before. They're getting rid of more and more of those departments. They're getting rid of their networking systems department. They're trying to spin that off into something else. And basically, they're just slashing to the bone as their company fails. And so that's one of the things I really want you to be thinking about and realize with so many of these technology companies, right? They rise and they die. And they die. That's just how the system works. Except for IBM. I don't know what's going on with IBM. IBM just keeps doing whatever the fuck it is IBM does. I'm not sure. I have buddies of mine that work at IBM. It's like, what? Why are you guys still in business? They're like, we don't know, but our checks keep clearing. So anyways, the only company to get out of the rise and die cycle is IBM. And that has something to do with mainframes and COBOL or something like that. So anyways, what do you think about this? What do you think about Intel cutting even more employees? 25,000 for 2025 entirely, again, 40,000 over the last 2 years, it seems. They're trying to just axe, all of these expenses, get rid of departments, all of that type of thing. What do you think about this when you hear about Intel? Do you think there will be a resurgence in Intel? Or is this the death knell, right? Remember when Marissa Myers became CEO of Yahoo and then she went out and started buying things? Like she bought not Twitter. She bought, what was that social media site? Tumblr, right? She went out and bought Tumblr spent $1 billion on Tumblr for some reason. Why? Who the hell knows, right? Went out there, tried to do all this restructuring and buying stuff in order to make Yahoo relevant again. It did not happen. Do you think we are on the downward slide of Intel? Is this the Marissa Myers point where they're just trying to do something in order to save this company? Do you think it actually can come back? Do you imagine a time period where Intel is going to be the future again? Put your thoughts down below. Remember, you can give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down, an awesome comment, or a horrible comment. As far as YouTube is concerned, it's all an interaction. So put that interaction down below. I will say with Silicon Dojo, if you follow along with my other project, there's silicondojo.com. We are having a fireside chat next week with the CTO and co-founder of an integrations company who's going to talk about AI integrations and how that's actually worked out. Spoiler alert, it should be funny. So we're going to have that next week. And then the week after, we're having David Cox again, the VP for AI models for IBM. He will be on the show so we can talk about AI models and what exactly it is IBM does to stay in business. Inquiring minds want to know. If you're interested in that, make sure to go to silicondojo.com and sign up for those fireside chats. I'm going to continue to have those fireside chats, bring in real technology professionals. You can hear what the hell it is that they have to say, and then you can come up with your own opinions. With that, that's all I have. See y'all tomorrow.